Today I'm going to be showing you how I created this really cool dynamic block of a pizza. Before we get started, I'm going to assume that you're already a reasonable AutoCAD user. You have experience with dynamic blocks. You have a reasonable level of experience with constraints and parameters. And of course, you know how to use arrays. What I'll be talking through in more depth is how to work with user parameters, how to create dependent parameters, and how to work with incremental parameters. So you can think of the pizza as being made out of 3 different items. The first part is simply a circle with 2 lines cut out of it. I began by applying some fixed constraints to make sure that the lines stay in place, and then a horizontal constraint so that that line remains horizontal at all times. I then applied some coincidence constraints to the end of the lines so that they would stay attached to the circle. I then applied a dimensional angular constraint. This will form the slice. And then an aligned constraint. It may surprise you, but I actually placed one here, and I'm going to show you why. Now, if we just constrain the radius, but we don't constrain that part, we get this very strange behavior, which is why I kept it in. And then I applied a radius constraint. Now, I didn't want these to appear in the end block, so I selected them, opened up the Properties panel, and just hid them from view. So no grips and not visible in the Properties panel when it's open. I also changed the angle to incremental and to units of 45. This is so that it works much more easily with an array later on. So here you can see it's simply a circle, sort of Pac-Man-like creature. Now the second part is sort of 2 slices. We've got the red, which will represent the filling, and the yellow, which will represent the slice. So I'm going to launch the array polar, and I'm going to create a polar array with the red slice. There's going to be 8 slices because they're 45 degrees. Circle split into 45 degrees is 8. And we'll leave it like that. Going to do the exact same thing with the slice. And I'm going to use the same central point. And again, we want 8 slices. So, perfect. Now all we need to do is make everything dependent on each other. For that, we're going to open up the Parameters Manager and we're going to create 2 new user parameters. I'm going to call the first one slices. And we know that that needs to equal the angle that's currently set. And it needs to be divided by 45 degrees because each slice is 45 degrees and we want 1 slice per angle. The angle was set to 45 degree increment. So if I change the angle, I will get 2. I'll get 4, and so on. The next thing is I'm going to create another parameter, which is 45 degrees. And I'm going to make the slice dependent on that. I just found that this was a cleaner way of doing it. So this is going to be the slice ang, which will equal 45 degrees, which means in the other formula we can replace 45 with slice ang. It still has the exact same result because slice ang equals 45 degrees. So if I change the degree, you can see that the result changes. And then I'm going to, again, hide these from the final block because I don't want anybody to be messing with them. Now what we have to do is apply these user constraints to the array. So we'll select the array. First thing that we want to do, We know that the increments are always going to be 45 degrees, so I'll set that to slice ang 45. There's a little symbol there that displays it, and if I change it, you'll see that the result is changed. I personally found that setting the increments and the number of items was the best way to go for this block. You may want to experiment for your own results. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set the number of slices so that it matches the angle. So if I enter slices, you can see that I've got one slice automatically. So if I change the angle to 90, I get 2 slices because that's divided by 45 degrees. 180, I get 4 slices, and so on. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but in reverse with the filling. So we're going to set the slice ang, that's the gaps between, is 45 degrees. And this time we're going to have 8 minus the number of slices, because we want the slices to have been taken out of the hole. If you change the angle, you can see that it fills at 180. It fills the remaining gap here. The only issue is that it's going in the wrong direction. To solve this, I use the mirror command. So I just mirrored the array so it moved in the opposite direction. If I change the angle, you can see the result. Just going to delete that, we don't need it anymore. Let's see how the final block looks. So if I move the angle at increments of 45 degrees, the slices goes up because we're adding, the filling goes down because we're taking away. So if we look at the pizza, it's built up in the same way. We've got the circle, we've got the 2 lines, and then the filling is just an array that's a repeating pattern. And the exact same there. I really enjoyed making this, and I hope that this tutorial helped you out. If you have any questions you'd like to know more, please drop me a message and I will do my best to help you out. Thank you so much for watching.